Dear Talking About Platforms listeners, this episode is part of our special AI-generated series, exploring the key ideas and influential works that have shaped platform studies. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Talking About Platforms. We're continuing our special series, diving into core platform research papers, the kind that have really shaped the field.
Yeah.
And this time we're cracking open industry platforms and ecosystem innovation by Annabelle, Gawer, and Michael Cusumano, published back in 2014.
Yep. It's one of those papers you see cited everywhere, and for good reason. Gawer and Cusumano really nailed down something fundamental. Not all platforms are created equal.
Right.
And that's key to understanding how companies innovate and grow.
Okay, so right off the bat, they're throwing down a challenge to our assumptions. What's this core distinction they make about platform types?
They break it down into internal and external platforms. Internal platforms are all about a company streamlining its own product development. Think of it like a company building a hyper-efficient factory line, but for ideas. They can churn out variations on a theme really quickly using shared components. The paper actually uses a fascinating historical example here. Baldwin Locomotive Works back in 1854.
Locomotives. That's a blast from the past.
Right. But it illustrates the point perfectly. They standardized locomotive parts so they could mix and match to make tons of engine types, even customized ones, without starting from scratch each time.
Oh, wow.
It's internal platform thinking, just way before we called it that.
So that's internal hyper-focused.
Yeah.
What makes an external platform different?
External platforms are the ecosystem builders. They're open to outside companies, letting them build on the core. This is where network effects really kick in. The more players join, the more valuable the platform becomes for everyone. Think Microsoft Windows, Intel chips, or even Apple's App Store. Yeah. They don't just make stuff, they create the space for others to make stuff too.
All right, so two very different approaches. But from a strategy perspective, are there clear winners and losers here? I mean, external platforms seem to be dominating the tech world right now.
It's not that simple. Both types have their advantages and drawbacks, and it really depends on a company's goals, resources, and the industry they're playing in. Internal platforms give you tight control over your IP and development process, which can be crucial for some businesses.
Right.
But you might be limiting your growth potential. External platforms, on the other hand, can explode in value thanks to network effects.
Yeah.
But managing that sprawling ecosystem is a whole other beast.
That's a really interesting point. Network effects is both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
You've got companies like Facebook with billions of users making it nearly impossible to compete.
Yeah.
But then there's the flip side. The paper talks about the innovator's dilemma, right?
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting for anyone trying to build or invest in platforms. Even a dominant platform can get blindsided by a new technology or business model that starts out seemingly inferior but improves rapidly. It's a classic disruption scenario.
So what you're saying is being the top dog today doesn't guarantee anything tomorrow.
Yeah.
Even if you've got the network effects locked down, someone could come along and change the game entirely.
That's the constant tension platform leaders have to navigate.
Right.
And the paper uses some great examples to illustrate this point. Let's take IBM, for instance. They completely dominated the early computer market with their mainframe platforms. But they were slow to adapt to the rise of the personal computer seating control to Microsoft and Intel.
Okay, so a classic case of a giant being overtaken. But IBM didn't exactly vanish, did they?
Right. And that's where things get even more interesting. They actually managed to reinvent themselves, embracing open systems and shifting their focus to services and software solutions. It's a testament to their ability to adapt even after losing their initial platform dominance.
So even in the face of disruption, there's hope for a comeback if you play your cards right. Are there any other examples that really highlight this innovator's dilemma in action?
The paper contrasts IBM with JVC and Sony, which fought the classic Betamax versus VHS battle. Sony, with their Betamax format, had the early technological edge, but they were hesitant to change their design or collaborate with other companies. JVC, on the other hand, went all in on partnerships, licensing VHS widely and working closely with content providers and hardware manufacturers.
So one company clean to control while the other embraces open collaboration. I'm guessing we know who came out on top there.
It's a stark lesson in how crucial those strategic partnerships can be, especially in a world driven by network effects. VHS dominated the market, proving that sometimes openness beats out proprietary control.
This is fascinating stuff, but we're just scratching the surface here, right? There's a lot more to unpack when it comes to external platforms and how they manage these complex ecosystems.
Absolutely. Gawer and Cusumano go on to outline 4 key levers of platform leadership that companies need to master.
And those are worth digging into, especially for anyone in the thick of platform strategy.
Think of them as the control panel for an external platform. Firm scope, technology design and IP strategy, external relations with complementers, and internal organization.
Okay, quite a mouthful there.
Yeah.
Let's break them down one by one.
Sure.
Like, what's this firm scope all about?
It's about deciding which parts of the platform ecosystem you as the platform owner want to control directly.
Okay.
Do you build certain complementary products or services yourself, or leave those spaces wide open for third-party developers? It's a balance between maintaining control and fostering a diverse, innovative ecosystem.
So it's about picking your battles, deciding where you absolutely need to be in the driver's seat and where you can trust others to steer. Got any examples of companies navigating this well?
Intel's a great case study here.
Okay.
They initially relied on external partners for chipsets and motherboards, but when they saw those partners weren't innovating fast enough, they strategically stepped in to produce some of these components themselves, essentially jump-starting the market. But the key is they did this while maintaining a neutral position in their labs so they could continue collaborating with external partners.
It's clever they filled a gap without alienating their collaborators.
Okay.
Next lever. Technology design and IP strategy. That sounds pretty technical.
It is, but it's also where some of the most critical strategic decisions happen.
Okay.
How open are you making your platform's interfaces? Do you give access to source code? How fiercely do you protect your IP versus encouraging others to build upon it? There's a constant tension between control and openness.
Yeah, you can see this play out with platforms like Apple's iOS, which is relatively closed, versus the more open Android ecosystem.
Right.
Each approach has its own risks and rewards. But what about the relationships with those third-party developers, those complementers, as the paper calls them? That's got to be a whole other challenge.
Absolutely. And that's where external relations with complementers comes in.
Right.
It's not just about building a cool platform. It's about building trust with the community that makes it valuable, providing support, resources, even financial incentives. It's all part of making sure those developers feel like valued partners, not just tenants in your digital space.
It makes me think of how venture capitalists nurture their portfolio companies. It's not just about the money. It's about guidance, mentorship, connections, that whole ecosystem of support.
Exactly. Platform leaders need to think of themselves as ecosystem facilitators.
Right.
Not just tech providers. They have to be proactive in resolving disputes, making sure the playing field is fair and proving that everyone benefits from the platform's success. It's about fostering that win-win scenario.
Makes sense. Okay, last lever, internal organization. I'm guessing this one's about making sure your own house is in order before you try to manage a whole ecosystem.
You got it. Even with the best technology and partnerships, a platform can crumble if its own internal teams are misaligned or working at cross purposes.
Right.
Minimizing conflicts of interest between internal teams and those external partners is crucial. Decisions need to be made with the health of the entire ecosystem in mind, not just what benefits one department or product line.
It's like building a strong foundation for a skyscraper. If the internal structure is weak, the whole thing could topple no matter how fancy the facade.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
These 4 levers, they're interconnected. You can't just focus on one and ignore the others. It's about a holistic approach to platform leadership.
All right, we've laid out these key levers. But as researchers or policymakers, how do we actually use this knowledge? I mean, the paper's full of examples, but what are the actionable insights here?
That's the crucial question. One of the biggest takeaways is that platform leadership is a dynamic process. It's not a destination. It's a constant journey of adaptation and evolution.
Right.
You have to be constantly monitoring the technological landscape, anticipating shifts, and being willing to make bold decisions even if they disrupt your own success.
It's almost like platform leaders need to be masters of change management.
Yeah.
Constantly scanning for those disruptors on the horizon and steering the ship accordingly. And they need to keep those 4 levers in mind every step of the way.
Exactly. And it's not just about reacting to change, it's about anticipating it.
Right.
That's where the research and policy implications really come into focus. We need to understand how platforms evolve, what drives their success or failure, and how we can create an environment that fosters both innovation and responsible growth.
And that brings us to another crucial question. What are the key factors that determine a platform's longevity? We've seen platforms rise and fall, but what separates the enduring ones from the flashes in the pan?
That's what I'm dying to know. Is there a magic formula, a set of rules that guarantee success?
Unfortunately, no. But the paper does offer some valuable insights. It comes down to a few key factors. Adaptability, for one.
Right.
We've seen how companies like IBM and Microsoft struggled to maintain their dominance when faced with disruptive changes. The platforms that thrive are those that can evolve with the times, embracing new technologies, and even cannibalizing their own products if necessary. Think of it like Darwin's theory of evolution applied to the tech world.
Survival of the fittest platform, so to speak. Another crucial factor is the strength of the platform's ecosystem. It's not just about the technology itself, it's about the community of developers, complementers, and users that make it valuable. The more diverse and engaged that ecosystem is, the more resilient the platform will be to external shocks. It's like a rainforest. The more biodiversity, the healthier and more stable the ecosystem.
That's a great analogy. So it's not just about building a platform, it's about cultivating a thriving community around it.
Precisely. And that means managing conflicts of interest and fostering trust within that ecosystem. This is where the platform owner's role becomes critical. They need to create a fair and transparent environment where everyone feels like they have a stake in the platform's success.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balancing act between maintaining control and empowering those third-party developers.
Yeah, it's like walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
Too much control and you stifle innovation.
Yeah.
Too much freedom and you risk losing control altogether.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot where the platform owner, the complementers, and the users are all aligned and working towards a common goal. And that's not easy. It requires strong leadership, clear governance, and a constant commitment to building trust and collaboration.
It's amazing how much ground this paper covers.
Yeah.
And how relevant it remains, even though it was published over a decade ago.
It really speaks to the foundational nature of Gawer and Cusumano's work.
Right.
The concepts they lay out, from platform types to the innovator's dilemma, are as crucial today as they were back then. In fact, they're even more critical given how platforms have become the backbone of the digital economy.
Absolutely. We've seen platform thinking reshape industries across the board, from transportation to entertainment.
Yeah.
It's hard to think of a sector that hasn't been touched in some way.
Yeah.
And the pace of change is only accelerating.
Mhm.
We're seeing new platform models pop up all the time, blurring traditional industry lines and creating new opportunities for innovation.
It's an exciting time to be in this field, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it also raises a lot of questions about the future of platforms.
Right.
What new challenges and opportunities are on the horizon? What trends should researchers and policymakers be paying attention to?
Okay, let's gaze into the crystal ball a bit. What's your take on the big trends that will shape the future of platforms?
One trend that's only going to become more prominent is the role of data and artificial intelligence in platform ecosystems.
Okay.
Platforms that can effectively leverage data to personalize experiences, optimize operations, and even anticipate user needs will have a serious leg up. We're talking about platforms that become almost sentient, developing a deep understanding of our preferences and behaviors.
It's a bit mind-blowing to think about, isn't it? Platforms that know us better than we know ourselves.
Yeah.
But there's also a potential dark side to that, right?
Yeah. You're hitting on a crucial point.
Yeah.
As platforms become more intelligent and interconnected, we need to be very mindful of the ethical considerations.
Right.
Data privacy, algorithmic bias, the potential for manipulation. These are all issues that researchers and policymakers need to grapple with.
It's a reminder that technological innovation isn't always a straight line to progress. We need to be asking tough questions about the societal impact of these platforms,
Yeah,
not just celebrating their potential.
exactly. And alongside the rise of data and AI, we're also seeing the emergence of decentralized platforms powered by blockchain technology and other distributed ledger systems. These platforms offer the promise of greater transparency, security, and even ownership for users and complementers.
So it's a potential shift away from the centralized control of the big tech giants towards a more distributed model where power is shared among the participants in the ecosystem. It almost sounds like a democratization of the platform economy.
That's one way to look at it.
Yep.
Of course, it remains to be seen how these decentralized platforms will evolve and whether they can truly challenge the dominance of the incumbents. But it's definitely a trend worth watching closely.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm struck by a sense of both wonder and caution.
Yeah.
Platforms have the potential to unlock incredible value and drive positive change, but they also present some serious challenges that we need to address head on.
I couldn't agree more. The future of platforms is something we're actively shaping through our choices, our actions, and our collective imagination.
This paper by Gawer and Cusumano gives us a powerful framework for understanding the dynamics at play.
Right.
I encourage all of our listeners to read the original work and to continue engaging with these critical questions around platform strategy, innovation, and governance.
The platform revolution is still unfolding, and the choices we make today will determine what that future looks like.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of platforms. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep innovating.
Thank you for listening to Talking About Platforms. In this special series on platform classics, we use AI to review and present published research, with intellectual property remaining with the original authors. Our goal is to make these insights accessible and encourage you to dive deeper into the original works. Stay tuned for more episodes and keep exploring the fascinating world of platforms.